What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Today we have a long form video for y'all. This is an interview with Matt and Andy from now just CGC Trading Cards, the grading company, talking about their recent shakeup in the space with CSG essentially going away and CGC moving to a new grading scale with subgrades going away, label changes, the whole 9 yards. We touch on pretty much all the hot button topics that you can ask for throughout the course of this discussion. We also hit on a couple things that weren't related to this, signature series, AI grading, and how it kind of plays into things these days. Briefly touched on counterfeits and fakes and a lot of other topics. But if you were curious about the changes, kind of how they got there, why they did it, and their thought process behind some of this stuff, we touch on most of that stuff throughout this. It runs about an hour, so it is a little bit of a longer episode compared to normal. But there's a ton of good information in there, so I highly recommend checking this one out. Without further ado, and once again, thanks to Andy and Matt and CGC for the time and the transparency. It is always nice to get FaceTime with a grading company and be able to directly ask them questions. I do hit at this in the video. My questions were not pre-screened. I was allowed to ask anything that I wanted to. Nothing was off the table. It was just, hey, do you want to have Andy and Matt on? Cool. Give us a time and let's knock this thing out. So I'm always grateful when a company is very transparent like that. So let's go ahead and dive in. Here is my conversation with Matt and Andy from CGC Cards. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here with Matt and Andy from CGC Cards now. That is my one blessing from this, is I don't have to say CGC/CSG anymore going forward on all this. But Andy's been a member or a guest on the channel in the past. Matt, first time getting a chance to talk to you. For any of my viewers that may not know who you two gentlemen are, I'll throw it to you first, Andy, and then to you, Matt, to kind of give a brief little introduction for someone that might not have crossed your guys' paths.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Andy Broome. I'm the Vice President of CGC Cards. I'm primarily over the sports side of things. So I'm sure some of your audience, they've seen me before.
Yeah, and I'm Matt Quinn. I'm also Vice President of CGC Cards, and I oversee most of the gaming. And to Andy's mentioned, we both share the non-sports side, and take care of that. But no, it's been a fun ride. I'm happy to see CGC Trading Cards and CSG merge into one and become CGC Cards.
Yeah, so that's the big reason why you guys are here. So early last week, you guys kind of shook the snow globe and really changed things up in regards to kind of merging the two companies together and throwing everything under the CGC banner. And I guess we'll lead off with you first on this one, Matt. Kind of like, okay, what was the process behind, like, what were the wins here? Like, what was the process of trying to get to this point, and I guess why now?
Sure. I think when we first launched CGC Cards or Trading Cards in 2020, we had the vision of, competing with the Beckett's, the PSAs of the world. Obviously subgrades were a big part of that system back in 2020. I think a lot of people wanted those. And then as time kind of evolved and the collecting space kind of matured into what they are today, it seems like, an industry standard scale is what was needed. So, you look at the other sides, the other verticals that we do here at Certified Collectibles Group, whether it be coins, rare banknotes, comic books, and things like that. The grading scales are very standardized across multiple grading companies, where if a customer buys one thing in one holder, they expect this grade to be this number, vice versa, another company, that grade is this number as well. So it made sense to us to kind of adhere to a market standard 10-point grading scale where Gem Mint 10 was the highest grade. So, I think in doing that, it allows a lot of opportunities that our collectors of CGC card holders couldn't have had before. Whereas like now you can have, let's say, an entire base set, first edition set, all in 10, so you get the opportunity to put together a Gem Mint 10 set of base set first. So, prior with Pristine being our highest grade and then Gem Mint 9.5, it was kind of an impossible task to get a complete 10 set in our grading scale of old. So I think it's going to really open up the opportunities for collectors to put together these sets, because with trading card games, set collecting is key. It's unlike sports cards where they just go after their favorite players. With gaming, they're looking to build sets, and this kind of just helps curate that process.
Yeah, and another big point of why we merged is the simplicity of the submission process. And one thing I love about Certified Collectibles Group as a whole is that we're passionate collectors all the way to the top. I was just talking to somebody earlier, Mark Salzberg, who was our chairman of our company. He just retired, but if you wanted to find Mark, he was in the grading room grading coins, and like he's a world renowned coin expert, but he was spending his time grading in the grading room. We didn't rely on him to grade, right? We have a full grading staff in coins, but that's his passion. So when he was able to, he was grading, and so I think that says a lot about the company as a whole. And why I bring that point up is, when we make decisions like this, we look at it from the collector standpoint. As I tell my graders all the time, we're talking about quality and the grading line. Would you be happy getting this back in your submission? This is your personal card. Would you be happy with this? Is the label correct? Is the grading correct? All those types of things. So, we want to look at it from the collectors, from the end user standpoint. And, what we found was there were hurdles to submit to us. Now, in the beginning, we were separate with trading cards and sports cards. Mainly the big reason was separate grading teams. That's one thing that we offer in the industry that no other grading company is doing, is having dedicated separate teams focused on their expertise. So my guys and gals are doing, sports and non-sports. Matt's team is focused on the trading cards, so they don't have to worry about, keeping up with the latest trends in sports cards. They worried about what's the newest Pokemon product, which that's what you want. That's what I want as a consumer. Is I want my stuff graded by the people who are passionate about that material. And so, what we found out was that, I say find out, we knew all along, but if I can't put all types of cards in one box, submit them on one submission form, one fee, that's a hurdle, right? And so that was one of the big things for us is, let's make this the best experience for the end consumer, the collector and the dealer. And let's put everything together because, essentially we're operating as one already. Logistically, on the operations side, from receiving verification all the way to encapsulation and shipping with shared resources. The difference was the grading teams. And so it just made sense that, while trading cards and sports cards started at a different time, now was the time to streamline and put things together. And it also gives us more opportunity to service our customers and offer, new opportunities, new services, and new products.
Yeah, and I can tell you from when I first heard this news, besides the whole CGC/CSG thing as a content creator, the first thing that I thought of was a submission process, because as someone that does occasionally submit sports cards but also submits Marvel cards, there were some times where I would build a submission, and even myself, as someone that kind of submits a lot of cards in for grading, I remember going to do it, and I'm like, wait a second, are you telling me I can't just send these all in the same box? Like I have to package, this is two separate forms, two separate boxes, two separate, pay for shipping twice there and back. So I 100% see the benefit of that. Now, for those that might not be aware, if a TCG person is just watching this now, Andy, you guys on your side kind of went through a shakeup. What was that, about a year and a half ago? How long has it been now since you?
Yeah, it's just almost a year and a half. Yep.
Okay. So was at the time that you guys did that, was anything like this ever kind of even thought about, of like, hey, we're already kind of like going to shake things up a lot with the CSG changes that you guys did with the grading scale. Does it make sense to just kind of combine all this thing together at that time? Or was it like, no, let's just do this and that's too much change right now? Or that wasn't even in the thought process? Because you guys just did have kind of a major shakeup, like I said, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, when we looked at CSG, we were addressing some changes in the marketplace. The scale being one of them, since very well, during the pandemic, we had a lot of new people in our industry, right? We had a lot of, not just new collectors and new dealers, but, what we call flippers and investors and whatever else. They all jumped into the industry when it was at its peak. And, it was very clear that the industry had shifted to the Gem Mint 10 scale. And so, with the timing, that's the way it worked out. We started with CSG. We made some big changes on our operating procedures, our operating software, and things of that nature. And, it's been a process. We don't make decisions like this light. We don't take them lightly. It's not a knee jerk reaction to something that's happened in the marketplace. This particular move has been in the works since then. It's been just over, I guess, a year and change, not quite a year and a half. So this process has already been in the works that long. At the time, we weren't able to do it together with the CSG move, but we put our resources in. We've conducted focus groups, dozens of focus groups, actually. We've done surveys, both, people that use our services, those that don't, which to me was as important, maybe even more important than just relying on people who have used this. Why are you not using this? And so all that data was compiled so we could make an educated decision. And so, unfortunately, I'd love to move faster and happen sooner, but that's the right process. You get the right information, spend the time, the resources. We have the backing to do things like this and put in the, do the legwork, right? And so I think that's really the big reason why is the timing now, because it took this long to really make sure things were right.
Yeah, and I think if I go on the TCG side, we had the same focus groups and surveys back when CSG made their first change. And overwhelmingly, the focus groups on the TCG side said not to change. And we had such a strong trajectory with our business, with the CGC Trading Cards business, that we were, doing great. I think there was no reason to change then. Things were going great. Not to say things are going bad now; they're still going great. But I think the markets shifted even more, per se, to look, wrap their heads around the Gem Mint 10 scale. So when we redid our focus groups and our surveys, they were saying that no, let's do we want this Gem Mint 10 scale now. So when we heard the noise and heard the feedback, we said, okay, well, we'll give them what they want. So, we're excited to be here now. I don't see any changes ever in the future for the grading scale or the label, really. So, what we see now is what we get. And now it's just expanding our presence in this market, in this vertical, with doing other things like signature series and doing, more cool things with the community. So, we're just having a lot of fun with it right now.
And that was one of the big things that I kind of saw feedback wise, both in my comment section and just kind of perusing the internet at large, which can be a scary place sometimes, was, for lack of a better term, like collector confidence, because you guys just recently had, that major change on the CSG side. And now this change over here, and people's just general, like, oh, they just had a major switch. Now they're doing another major switch. Like, are they going to switch again in another year or two? And on one hand, like, I can 100% see that. And I myself, we'll talk about the label in a minute. Like, I'm kind of caught in the middle on some stuff, trying to decide what I want to do.
Sure.
But on the other hand, I think you guys do deserve a little bit of credit to, read the room and say, hey, let's rip this Band-Aid off and make these changes. It might be some temporary pain. Anytime you make a change, there's going to be people, no matter what you do, that aren't going to be happy with it to one degree or another. But let's rip this Band-Aid off and kind of set things going in the direction that we feel like as a company, whether everyone agrees with it or not, that we kind of need to go on. So, but there is definitely a little bit of collectors' confidence out there right now, at least the vibe that I'm getting from comments and feedback.
Yeah, no, look, and it's understandable. This is a very big move. This is not something that, we decide on 1 week and then make the change the next week. We fully know that, that when you make big changes like this, it affects people. It affects, your collection. We definitely understand that. And, looking at what we like to innovate, we like to create new services and explore more, like Matt mentioned, signature series, autograph authentication, new sizes of holders and all that. And this was the move we had to make in order to make that, to do those expansions, right? The new services, new holders, and whatnot. And, Certified Collectibles Group's been grading collectibles since 1987. We're the world's largest collectibles grading service. So, we've been here for a long time. We're not going anywhere. This is a big change, but it's not a change we're going to be making again. We're where we need to be now. Now we can innovate and we can grow. And, it's not something we're going to be looking at in 6 months or a year. Okay, now we need a new label. No, we got to where we needed to be. It took some time to get here. It took a lot of effort and a lot of work to determine where that needed to be. But, I'm very confident where we need to be to move forward. And, this isn't going to be something like this is not going to be happening again. We're set.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of careful consideration changing the label, especially obviously because we have rated over 3 million, trading cards and over 1 million sports cards. So, doing something like this definitely shakes up the environment when people already have sets together. That's why we offered a reduced fee for reholders. We cut that price in half. Obviously we're going to be expediting these as fast as we can. We've been pretty well known in the business for turnaround times, and that's something we can continue to keep, having at the forefront of our business model, is to have your collectible for the shortest amount of time possible and get it back to you in a nice brand new label. So I think, like said, Andy was talking about, we're very long term on this change. I think that, we'll look back at this decision 3 years from now and be like, wow, that was the best decision we ever made. Obviously, yourself, as how, being more of a non-sport guy, I can understand where losing the blue label might be a little sting. It might be a little painful because you have the comic books, then you have the Marvel card next to it. But when you look at the entire card market as a whole, you look at the different things that are being put in these holders, and Marvel cards obviously is a good percentage of that, but of course, the Charizards and all the baseball cards and sports cards and things like that, obviously that label can be a little bit, contradictory to other items. But again, it's an exciting new world, I think, and there's a lot of opportunity. And we have the most talented group, I think, in the business, and we're going to be head down and ready to go. So.
Yeah, let's get into a couple. There seems to be three major friction points, I guess I'll say, on the shakeup that I've heard from the community and my viewer base as a whole. And one, as you touched on, was the label. And I do agree with you. We were even talking pre-stream, and I gave this feedback in the focus groups as well. Like from you nailed it. From the Marvel perspective, this one really hurts because you couldn't ask for a more perfect match. And really, as like I said, as a Marvel collector, I have a long box next to me and a set that I was working on that is now 20% CGC blue labels, and I got to figure out, do I want to transfer them over or not, or how do I personally want to handle this?
Right.
Or because correct me if I'm wrong, there's still about 2 weeks left that if you still want the blue label, you could chase that dragon if you want to.
There is till the 11th of July.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. That was around July 10th or 11th. So I'm like, well, do I really all of a sudden want to ship off 80 cards to knock this out real quick that I was not expecting to do? But the label definitely seems to be one thing, and I do get it from a macro level sense. If you move out of whatever individual community that you're in, whether it's Pokemon, Marvel, Magic, whatever it is, the blue label makes some sense in some cases, but it does not blanket coverage. Was there ever any consideration given to saying like, hey, because this is I've heard this a lot, like, why can't they just let us continue to submit? Why can't they segment Marvel and say, hey, Marvel, all your cards will still be graded in the blue label. It'll move over to the Gem Mint 10 scale. No subgrades. It'll follow the path of everything else, but we'll just design the label will still essentially stay the same with the new scale. Can you guys kind of talk about if that was even considered and kind of the whys of why that not might necessarily work? Is easy on paper. It sounds easy. Well, yeah, just give me a drop down menu. I'll select that, bing, bang, boom, and my Marvel cards come back on a blue label. But I'm sure it's much more complex than that.
Yeah, it was absolutely considered. We had all kinds of options on the table, but the biggest thing it came down to was simplicity for the users, obviously. So we also need to get faced up with all these different label options and things like that. Obviously, if we had a plan in place to offer multiple labels, I think it could be successful, but at the same time, it just kind of dilutes the brand identity too. Especially compared with the Pokemon cards now as well. But I think the black label is going to grow in time with people, and it still says CGC at the top. So, you're still going to have that semblance between your comics and your cards. Obviously, having them both in the blue labels would be ideal. But again, if you look at how many collectibles we get submitted, Marvel represents a very small fraction of that, unfortunately. But, obviously, Marvel's one of the biggest things we love in this building and all these buildings is, seeing all those Action 1s and then the, amazing Fantasy 14s and things come through and all that really cool stuff. But again, I think they're going to start, putting them side by side and be like, you know what, I can live with this. This looks good. But again, complexity is the biggest thing we wanted to focus on and making it the least complex possible. And we felt like offering multiple labels that didn't have a specific meaning would degrade things like signature series or other things that, we give exclusive colors to.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we found in the focus groups, especially, was that people wanted a neutral label. When we're looking at the labels and the holder, we have the clearest holder in the industry. And that's by design. That wasn't by accident. And just one of the many reasons why we wanted a crystal clear holder was for the holder not to take away from the card, because at the end of the day, no matter who it's graded by, what holder it's in, you're buying the card, right? When I buy cards, I'm buying the card regardless of what holder it's in. But I don't want that to take away from the card. I'm buying the card. So that goes for the holder. It also goes for the label as well. And so that's what we heard from the focus groups. The majority had said, we want something that it doesn't take away from the card. It's there. It gives the catalog data, the information, what the card is, obviously the grade, and that's it. And it kind of steps back. And so the label's not the focus. The holder's not the focus. It's the card. And so that's we on the CSG side, excuse me, we had gone to a black label because of the same type of feedback that we got, and we found over the last year and change that it's been very popular. The black is very neutral, and so that's what we heard as well on this merger. And we definitely heard from people with Marvel connections, and that's their focus. But we're still the same CGC brand that both comic collectors and card collectors love. And while we're not the same color as comics, we're our own entity, right? The card brand itself. And so we want to listen to the community and listen to users and collectors and dealers. And we can't make everyone happy. No one can, of course. We know that old saying. But we want to do what's the best for not only the product being a graded card, but the marketplace as a whole. And if the majority says they want a neutral label that doesn't take away from the card, that's where we shifted our focus.
This is kind of a side question to this that doesn't have anything to do with the change, just because I'm a big comic book collector as well. Is there any chance that we would ever in the future potentially see, because on the comic side, you guys do a lot of custom labels, that match up with the character and stuff like that. Is there a chance that we would ever see stuff like that come to the card side? Like I know the Signature Series, you guys kind of dabble with it, like the McFarlane thing, you guys had a custom McFarlane logo on there or something like that. But is that something that you guys have at least is on a whiteboard somewhere?
Oh, it's beyond a whiteboard. It's happening. So we have Signature Series for cards that'll be starting soon, which will have its own unique label, just like with comics. And we absolutely will be using some labels with, like you said, with the Marvel is a good example. Actually we licensed Marvel to use Marvel characters and logos on the label. And so you'll see more of that on the card side as well. And again, that's yet one more reason why of this, we did this merger so we can do that. So we don't have multiple labels when we're trying to do something like a Signature Series, because that's going to create confusion. That was another thing we heard too, is that, and Matt, you can expand on this, but on the trading card side, we had multiple colors. We had a green label for basically like a qualified label.
Sure.
And, that was the thing we heard was we want one label for simplicity. And so, if we do something like Signature Series and we're to have multiple labels, now we have to have multiple Signature Series labels. So it just gets really confusing. But yeah, you'll definitely see Signature Series first, and then you'll also see things like we'll be working on with different logos and different custom labels, and not just for like a team logos, things like that. We'll be doing custom labels with other other entities, other companies, and things like that.
Yeah, if you look at our other verticals coins as well, you'll notice the bevy of different label types that we offer for that too. You can get anything from like the bicentennial, so you have the American flag on there and cool other stuff like that. But obviously the Marvel ones, having like a character, right, like having a Spider-Man right on there, is huge. So I think at some point, when all the licensing things work out, obviously which worked out for comics, so that's just down the road. But I would not be surprised if all of a sudden you see some cool label options coming up for CGC cards. And, I think those will be mostly tailored to the Marvel guys, the non-sport Marvel guys. So, I think that's going to be one place where you guys will get a little scratch in the back from us. Obviously, losing the blue label, kind of painful, like you said. But I would say some of our innovative features and products coming up soon would be things that help you guys as community out the best. So,
I have Signature Series questions, so I want to kind of circle back to that. But I do have one quick question for anyone that has like a current Signature Series Gem Mint 9.5. Are these eligible now to be reholdered to a Gem Mint 10, or is that going to be a hold off process initially?
I would say that we're probably going to let you know that, hey, we're working on the label. Once we have that label figured out and dialed in, then yes, you can submit them in, and they grade absolutely overnight. So without the label change from us manually, it's still going to be considered a Gem Mint 10 in our population report. So although the label might not be ready immediately for the signature series for reholders of that nature, it is being worked on, and once it is available, then yes, you're good to go.
Okay. But if you have those now, hold off on submitting those for a reholder.
Correct.
Yeah, hold on. Those will be separate. We'll treat those a little bit different than we are with the regular. If you're sending in a regular card to be relabeled, the signature series will be a little bit different. So
yeah,
some people are going to think, oh, I missed the discount deadline, but on signature series, that'll be a different program once it's officially launched.
Well, it's not like you guys have a ton of those out there because you've only done just the McFarlane signing so far, at least on the comic side that I'm aware of. I know there's a Liefeld one ongoing right now for submissions. So but I just wanted to check because I did get a lot of questions about the how are we handling signature series, or how are you guys handling signature series labels? So go ahead.
I'm just going to say, you'll hear more about signature series really soon. That'll be kind of our next big announcement as far as the launching the label and all that good stuff. So that should be soon. Cool.
So that's label done. So the other two hot topics or two more remaining on the the pain points, I guess, if you will. The other one was the subgrades going away. And I know, Andy, you had this conversation a year and a half ago about subgrades going away. And subgrades are always one of those things that it's, when you bring them up, there's definitely a vocal group that, really gets behind, I want the subgrades. We need the subgrades. And then in reality, the end user doesn't necessarily always, either opt for the option, or the secondary market doesn't respect them as much as what, maybe the collector base does. Now, for you guys, and I believe the number was, I think it was 5% of the general, roughly speaking, of submissions requested the subgrades on the TCG side.
Yep.
So from a just blanket, like looking at it, it's like, oh, if only 5% are ordering it, or are ordering subgrades, it makes sense to kind of get rid of these. Do you think that was more people didn't want the subgrades, or do you think it was more about the cost to have the subgrades on there? Because one thing was, for you guys on a bulk submission to the CGC side, for example, it would be $15 a card. Right. And the subgrade fee was also $15. So it wasn't like the pricing was intuitive to, or not intuitive, was, you were paying as much for the subgrades as you would to get the card graded to get those tacked on. So is it, it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it 5% is only getting the subgrades because 5% is only getting the subgrades, or is it because of what the pricing of the subgrades were?
Well, we had launched, in 2020, the subgrade fee was only $5 then. And our percentage of subgrades back then was still under 10%. Fast forward, we got up to $10, and then I'm up to 15 as we are now before the merger. And that's a good critique to bring up as far as price is concerned. But also there's other big variables that came into it with subgrades, and then in going to the Gem Mint 10 scale. That's just, reasonableness. When you look at a card that now qualifies as a Gem Mint 10 under a scale, the previous subgrades could have been 959, 9595, and then you have to print a 10 on that grade, on a final grade. And that just, it's hard to justify that 10 with those subgrades. I think that, everyone believes the card is Gem Mint 10 quality, but the subgrades obviously don't add up to that. And then finding out the right arithmetic to make subgrades make sense under this current grading scale, which was pretty much just impossible to really hash out in a sensible manner without confusing the community even further. And with subgrades, a lot of times people would nitpick subgrades, this and that. The other thing, I think, obviously they do offer the end collector some visibility and viewability of how the grade achieved which state. But I think, just an overall 1 to 10 grade with half grades gives you enough insight into how nice the card is. So with that being said, subgrades was one thing that, I as a Magic guy kind of sort of missed, but I can kind of also get on board with, it wasn't really necessary either. You look at like ancient coin grading and stuff, they have a couple different subgrades for ancient coins, but then they have really big things like the strike, and all the other things that attribute to an ancient coin's grading scale, where these cards don't have quite that variability of things that can go wrong. Whereas something that's 4,000 years old that was made with, really rudimentary tools could. So I think in general, subgrades is one thing that I might miss a little bit. I'll be honest, but I think, for the community and for the collecting, simpleness, the barriers to entry to not have to be confused by them, it makes the most sense, and especially with a Gem Mint 10 scale.
Yeah, and we understand, the purpose of subgrades, what they're trying to do, and that's to give more insight into as to why a card was graded, what it was. And it's something that we've really been working hard on. We're still working on some different ideas, because we think that there's got to be a better way to get that information to the end consumer. Why did this grade the way it did? So that's something that's a high priority for us right now that we're working on. So I think that once we implement whatever we come up with, how we want to communicate that information to the consumer, I think is going to be I think it's going to be game changing, especially some of the things we're looking at. So we understand that people want more information, and to your point, talking about the pricing of the subgrades, in at least two of the surveys and some of the focus groups, that was actually a point brought up, is that if it come down to faster turnaround times or subgrades, which one would be better? And because the subgrades will slow down the process, and so that affects turnaround times. And so that was another thing we heard was, not everybody wants subgrades, especially for certain materials. Some material is better for subgrades than others, and so anyway, my point is, I think there is a better way to communicate that why to the customer, and that's something that one of our teams right now is working on developing a new system of communicating that. Why did it receive this grade, or why is this one area causing the card to be graded the way it is.
Yeah, and a big common misconception I see all over the internet with subgrades, is that they're always saying, hey, if you're grading, you're always doing the subgrades to anything you ever grade, whether it has subgrades or not. And everyone's like, well, if you already have the subgrades, why don't you just print them? Well, there's a little misconception there, because if you're grading without subgrades, you're essentially looking for the worst two qualities of the card. So if you look at a card and it's let's say an 8.5 centering and a 9 surface, and everything else is beautiful between 9 or 10, then you're like, okay, it's a 9. Therefore, you don't have to get into the nitty gritty of like, oh, is that edge a 9.5, or is that corner a 9.5 or a 10? So, I mean, when you're not actually having to go through and put precise numbers on these subgrades, the process of grading the cards is faster. Same thing to be said, like, oh, there's a 8.5 corner, but everything else is amazing. Okay, it's a 9. So there's a lot of situations where a grader will be definitely a much more speedy than they would if they had nothing but subgrades. So, it's just something to consider, something that I see brought up a lot.
Yeah, you stole the. I was going to follow up with that exact question, because you kind of talk about the difference of grading with a subgrade and not, because it does kind of make sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
If you look at a card and it's like, oh, everything looks great, and that one thing is there that knocks it down to a 9, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to sit there and then go figure out, well, is the edge a 9.5 or a 10,
right?
And kind of do that extra level of dig, because it doesn't matter. The card's going to be a 9 no matter what.
Right.
Sure, I guess from a transparency standpoint of putting it on the label, so But I think, Andy, you kind of nailed it. I think ultimately what subgrades are about, it's not about the different 9s or the 9.5s. I think what it really boils down to is people just want to know, hey, I thought this card was pretty clean. I sent it in and it came back an 8. Like, what the heck did I miss on this? Right. And currently, the industry standard, if you will, is essentially you just know that it's an 8, an 8.5, a 9, a 9.5, a 10, whatever the case might be, with no real information around, oh, well, you missed a crease on the back, or there was this surface thing in the back left corner that you missed. And I think, I don't know what you guys are working on, but the thing that I always bring up anytime I get a grading company on is, especially you guys, on the comic book side, you give us something. It's called Grader's Notes. They're right there. I pull it up and it just says, hey, there's a crease on the left cover, 3 spine ticks, and this, that, or the other thing. Yeah. But no card company has kind of gone to that extreme. And I get why. It would be a huge undertaking, but I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Us as collectors submit our cards most of the time thinking they're a certain condition on a pre-screen, and then we get them back, and every once in a while you get that curveball of, wait, what was I this far off on this? Or, is this grader crazy? Did they have did their lunch order get screwed up and they're taking it out on me? Like, what happened here?
With grader notes like that too, sometimes you'll have because if I look at a card, most of the time, the centerings are going to be pretty evident, and the corners of the edges are going to be pretty evident as well. So generally, if you look at those three things, you're like, wow, those are all, smoking. The odds are it's probably going to be a surface issue. And then, when you start bringing up things like, oh, well, there's a small indent back left center, you get a lot of people that might start being like, well, I don't see it. And then they, and I like the idea of greater notes, but I think it has to be very vague, because I don't want to get too into the weeds with this little piece here, this little piece there, because again, once the card's in the holder, it's kind of harder to see the surface sometimes too anyways. And a lot of people might not agree with us and then get really vocal with it. So it's a delicate balance with greater notes, but I agree with you that I think there's a way that you can do it that is successful, that won't mar the value of the item, because I mean, a negative comment is a negative comment, obviously, and it's not going to be a productive thing. But I think there's a way you can finesse it where it both gives information, but it doesn't detract from the collectible as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The other big thing, the third one that kind of came up quite a bit, was the perfect 10s going away.
Yes.
And I know from a population standpoint, there is not a ton of them out there. I checked with, I'm friends with Ryan over at GemRate and had him kind of pull the data, and I believe it's 0.5% of your guys' population report is a perfect 10. So it's a very, very small number. Excuse me, I believe it's slightly over 20,000 based off the GemRate numbers on the CGC side of things. But a lot of people, a lot of the feedback that I've seen, a lot of questions that were thrown my way when I said that I was having you guys on was, what was kind of the logic getting rid of on the grading scale switch? Why not keep the perfect 10? Why does that need to go away? I have an answer in my mind, but I'm curious for your guys' kind of thoughts on where how you landed on the perfect 10. Obviously, the old perfect 10s are staying around; those will be on the population report, but not using that grade as a metric going forward.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, with a perfect 10, the biggest thing that would have happened if we kept it with it, there'd be 3 different 10s on the grading scale. And that was a resounding no when we asked everyone in the focus groups and the surveys, would you be okay with 3 10s on the grading scale? And it was like overwhelmingly, no, you can't have 3. It was like 90%. Yeah, I'm not sure what it was, but it was a significant number. And therefore, we looked at, our brand in the market and decided that, our pristine 10 grade was very well valued, more so than our competitors. Our perfect 10 obviously was above certain competitors, but below others as far as our, quote unquote top one with 410 subgrades, which is our perfect grade. So, it made sense to keep the pristine and the gem mint 10, I think, is the way to give the collector that little extra opportunity to get something that's, so close to perfection, it's pristine, but also better than any other card you'll ever see. So I think it's still going to afford the collector that opportunity if they have a Gem Mint 10 collection, but they have a few pristine sprinkled in as well. That'll be cool. And then, of course, if you wanted to, you can have the iconic perfect, if there's any known that we better graded, which are going to be like the forbidden fruit. So it's going to be something that's going to be like an old school, rattle box holder for coins where they only gave them out in like 2-year time, but they're all notoriously, good for the grade or whatever have you. They become kind of like a relic of the past. And to your point, I think you mentioned, that we're going to have them in our population report. They're still going to be available for our registries. It'll be the most amount of points you can get on the registries. So those will be kind of entombed in like this ever preserved state of, the best of the best, which is kind of cool. I think that, people will appreciate that. I think the prices for them will probably go up, to be honest with you. So we recommend anyone with these perfect graded cards to keep those in those holders. Do not take them out. Do not send them back to us. Our recommendation is to leave them as they are. They're going to be truly the special cards, like really special parts of our history.
Yeah, and I want to say just real quick too, part of that Matt mentioned, that legacy, the great thing about Certified Collectibles Group is, we have guarantees for our grading. And so the perfect grade is a great example. It's a legacy grade now, but it's fully supported in Pop Report, the set registries, and it's still under our guarantee. So, we stand behind our product regardless of if it's the old label or new label, old scale, new scale. The card still has the same value, and we're always going to support them.
When since you mentioned pop reports, when can we expect the new version of the population report? When something like that will? I know like the CSG pop report's kind of been up and down over the last couple of months, I assume, in anticipation of this switch. But when should we expect to see like an actual, like, this is what the pop report is now with kind of all these new grades reflected in it?
Yeah. So it's going to be in August. We'll announce the exact date here with the next list of announcements that we have coming. But in August, you'll have one pop report, one set registry, and one online submission form. So it's going to be real easy to navigate. Go to one page, which is cgccards.com, and you'll be able to see everything, whether it's trading card, non-sports, or sports.
Yeah, it'll be very intuitive like it is now. I think our pop report, for CGC Trading Cards is one of the best in the business, along with CSG. I think it's going to make it easy for collectors to, also for registries and things like that. It's a research tool. But yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be really well updated. It'll have all the information you need. And like I said, it'll be really, really easy to navigate, which is the key.
Just some random in the weeds things that were just kind of like one-offs. One of the big questions that I got were CGC 9s in regards to those getting bumped potentially to the new, because on the CGC side, there has never been that Mint Plus, is that what the 9.5 is called? So is there a magical subgrade formula if someone has something with subgrades that a 9 is automatically going to go to a 9.5? Is it a case-by-case basis? If someone's sitting on a bunch of CGC 9s that they want reevaluated for a 9.5, how should they kind of go about handling that?
So there is a magical formula. I kind of spoiled it before in a video, but so basically, if you're familiar with subgrade jargon, if you have a card that's a quad 9++, so basically all subgrades are 9. Well, 2 of those subgrades are 9.5 or better. That's basically be our minimum quality for a mid plus 9.5. Those subgrades can be arranged in any order, whether it's centering, surface, corners, or edges, but basically you have to have 2 9s and 2 9.5s or better. So it's basically a card in our old scale that just barely missed a Gem Mint 9.5, which is now our Gem Mint 10. So this card would just barely miss our new Gem Mint 10 and become a Mint plus 9.5. So again, 4 9s, 2 of those 9s have to be 9.5s, and then you're in. So a 9 9 10 10 would be okay. A 9 10 9 10 would be okay. But like say anything that has an 8.5, like an 8.5 triple 10 would still just be a 9. So the minimum subgrade can only be a 9 to achieve that spot. Same thing could be said with like an 8.5 corner, surface, or edge, or anything like that. If there's an 8.5 in a grading logic in our heads, then it's not going to become a Mint plus 9.5. So basically that level of grading for our graders, for the TCG side especially, we'll keep that in their heads of what's going to merit that grade.
And then if someone has a CGC 9 without subgrades, if they submit that through the $5 Reholder, does that get reevaluated for a 9.5 or no? Is there a different process that they have to take if they want a 9 like re-looked at with no subgrades?
It'll get reevaluated. Yep.
Okay. So there is a potential that you could submit some 9s for the Reholder and then maybe get a couple of bonus 9.5s back.
Yeah, if they don't have subgrades. Yeah.
And I do want to say that's on the trading card side. So CSG, we've had the 9.5 Mint Plus now, so that won't change. However, if you have some from our very beginning, before we had the 9.5 Mint Plus, then the same applies. We would review the 9.
And I did get that question a few times as well on the CSG side of things. If someone still has the green labels floating around, would those qualify under the $5 Reholder during this time? Okay. That's
absolutely. The way I describe it, and this is kind of hard in our industry for everyone to jump on, but when I say legacy and we honor everything we've done, it's same. This is a great example. If it's the green label CSG, it gets relabeled just the same. For the $5 right now.
And when those cards get reholdered, are they going to get rescanned? Because I believe you guys do imaging, correct? So will those, like if I have I shouldn't even go this route. If I have a Charizard from some Pokemon set that I'm not aware of, in a Gem Mint 9.5, and I send it in for a Reholder, will the image get updated to the Gem Mint 10 with the new label?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Cool. Yeah. So that's the great thing about us on both sides. From day one, the very first card we graded, it's been imaged front and back. You can access that on our cert verification page or with the QR code on the back of the label. So won't be any different if it gets sent in for a new label. It gets re-imaged just like if it was submitted for the first time. So there'll be updated images of every card.
Nice. And will you guys be doing Reholders at the National if someone wants to do it in person and save on shipping?
We will. we'll be releasing our pricing information for the national here very soon.
Okay.
But we will be doing the relabel at the national. If you want to wait till national and get them done on site, we'll be ready for it.
Perfect. Just a couple other quick little hitters that I kind of want to touch on. One that we kind of talked about this before, and I want to circle back to Signature Series. And this is actually, these next couple of things are kind of completely unrelated to what you guys just went through. I just figured I'd sneak them in while I have you guys. On the Signature Series and I think I kind of know the answer to this based on what you hinted at earlier, but is that going to open up a little bit more in regards to submissions? Because, you log on now to the Signature Series website and there's just a boatload of, actors, artists, all sorts of people that you look at. And, I was clicking on some and I was like, oh man, I would love to submit a card for this to have Haley Steinfeld sign it, or Elizabeth Olsen, or Chris Evans, whoever was on the list. And then you click on it and it's like, sorry, comic books only. And I was giving Susan, your marketing person, hell, I was like, I would like to give you my money. Will you please take it? And you guys won't let me give it to you for certain things. And that's something that's very unique to you guys. Like as a submitter, as a collector, that's a huge advantage that I view that you guys have, because you have these people come through your doors all the time that I could send collectibles in and kind of don't have to worry about it. I love the like on my McFarlane slabs, it says like this item was signed by Todd on this specific date, and I know that it was witnessed by someone in your building. There's no questions about it at all. Is that something that you guys are going to try to leverage on the trading card space, or even the sports card space as we kind of move into the future?
Yeah, I mean that's the Signature Series right there. We'll be just like in comics. Our plan is to not only continue on the non-sports side with Marvel, like we've done with McFarlane already, and we have more names coming, but on the sports side as well. Athletes, we'll be doing some athlete signings and things of that nature. I'm very excited about the autograph, not only Signature Series, but eventually also autograph authentication. I'm a big signed card guy. And so I love getting cards signed, and I'm really excited because, to your point, we work with all the big names in the comics industry. I know Todd McFarlane's one of our biggest advocates. He loves it. But, we see that on the card side as well, being able to expand and not just comic related signings, but sports, and also, the artists like on Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, doing signings with the artists from those series as well. So there's a lot of great opportunities. And again, this all this move is done to align us to be able to do those types of things.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, the program hurdles and things like that. We want to make sure we do it all right, because we do want to have those more intimate signing events, like that you're probably thinking about. Is like, you're at a show and then, like, let's say Mark Poole, who drew a piece of the Power Nine in Magic, is there signing cards. Like maybe we have an hour where we're over there witnessing with Mark. Do your cards with Signature Series, and bam, we can take those in. Not just the major events we do here at our headquarters or do somewhere in a private location, but doing things at shows again would be pretty cool to do with Signature Series. So when we really just take the bow off of Signature Series and release it to the public, we want to make sure that every little piece of it's covered, that we're doing it all the right way. So we want to make sure it's just a really pleasing experience for the user. So that's the goal in mind right now for Signature Series, is to make sure that we have every little facet of what we plan to offer covered before we really unveil it to the public.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just like I said, as a collector, the Signature Series stuff excites me the most, and a lot of it is, not even on the Marvel side of things, just like the access that you guys have to like actors and actresses and stuff like that in kind of the more the non-sports world, whatever it is, Star Wars, Marvel, whatever pop culture thing it is. I mean, you guys could really kind of bring in anybody to have them sign cards. I just really think that kind of opens up Pandora's box in a good way. And it really allows for some unique collectibles to get signed that you might not otherwise have a chance to. Or maybe that person doesn't even have a pack pulled auto that's even available to chase, even if you want to, or log on the eBay and try to find it. Or maybe it's super rare and it's just cheaper to send something in or get your own item signed. So the Signature Series stuff really excites me. I'm glad to hear that you guys plan on kind of blowing that out more.
And that's you think of CGC as the pop culture collectibles company. NGC and PMG as the coins and paper money respectively, but CGC, the umbrella is the pop culture. It's the comic books, video games, VHS, all that great stuff. And cards fall into that as well. So, by bringing CSG into CGC under all the same brand, to your point, that gives us that leverage to do more in the pop culture, do more at the signings with athletes, actors, artists, and everything. And I mean, I'm with you. That's one of the things I'm really excited about as well as the autograph portion, the signature series.
Yeah.
One last quick. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying, yeah, 6 Series is probably one of the things I'm most excited about too. To be honest, everyone shares the same sentiment here, and I think a lot of people I've talked to in the business also agree that they're just chomping at the bit to see it, and we're all super excited to hear from when we finally get to launch it. Yeah.
Cool. One last thing I kind of want to touch on, once again, this is kind of unrelated to the change, but just kind of grading in general. Where is, and I don't know what you guys utilize and not when it comes to AI grading, is that like where do you guys kind of view the state of AI grading? Is it more like, or even like where you see it going in the future? Is it more like, do you guys kind of feel like a human always needs to be there and the AI is more of an assist? Or do you think, and it's hard to say because technology changes so fast these days, but is there going to be a world one day where an AI is doing 98% of the work and there's basically just a human there verifying that the computer didn't mess up? Like, where do you guys have any hot takes, I guess, on AI grading?
Well, it's obviously a hot buzzword in the industry right now. And, there's a number of different companies and people trying to develop different systems. We actually have been using AI assistance in the grading since we pretty much when we started. It was right after we started. And, what we have found is you hear AI, right? And you think of it's all automated, no humans, it's going to take over the world and all that. We're not to that point. We're not there. The technology's not there, especially when we're talking about evaluating a three-dimensional collectible, right? So it has its limitations. But, we use AI in two different areas. The attribution, meaning the identification of the card, and then also the grading assistance. And so, we have our expertise in grading. We have our grading experts. So, we're not trying to replace them. What we're trying to do is give them more tools, give them more information at their fingertips so they can make a more educated decision on the grading, but also maintain a tighter grading standard, a grading line. And so, with our AI system, it'll tell the grader, I believe, these corners are this, or I believe this. But it's ultimately up to the expert grader to make that determination of, no, I disagree. Corners are a 7. And so then the machine learning will say, okay, the expert said it's a 7, so I'll file that away as a 7. So that's what real life AI today, that's what's being done. That's what we're using. Will it ever be fully automated? I'm sure it will be, right? I mean, we've seen advancements in just, what we publicly see with AI just in the last year, even the advances that have been made. So, no doubt at some point we'll get to that point to where we'd be able to fully automate a grading process, possibly. We're just not there right now. And I'll give a great example. Looking at the surface of a card, you can't get an accurate grade from a flat image of a card for the surface grade. You have to think of the surface of a card almost like a topographical map. And so that's a whole nother process, to be able to give some assistance on the grading line. That's a whole nother discussion. I'm sure we could do a whole show on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's what we use. And it's again, it's just like any other tool. We have some great technology that we use. We have, I think we talked about it on your show before, with the video spectral comparator that we use, different light sources, the X-ray that we use that we can, examine the elements of the item, whether it's a card or whatever it is. So we got some really cool, futuristic toys we get to play with on the technology side. And the AI assistance is just another one of those. It's another tool to, like I said, it's there to help the graders, assist the graders, give them more information.
Yeah, I echo his same sentiments. I think the AI, we've gone through a couple different platforms. We're obviously very excited to get it to work and get it to be more than it is today. But I agree with Andy that verification, like knowing what the card is, what language, what, variant it is helpful. And also so the grades that it gives the graders sometimes will be very far off. Sometimes it'll be close. Sometimes it'll pick up something that they didn't see before. So it is a very useful tool, and it just gets smarter every time we feed more material through it. So, it's exciting to think about the future, what it could be like, and, what kind of crazy, robots will be doing your grading in the future. Like we already have a pretty cool encapsulation thing. You probably saw snippets of in our little launch video. And I wouldn't have never thought that was going to happen when I first started with this company, but here it is. So I think the future is going to be fun, and bright, and exciting. I think there's a lot of brilliant young minds out there trying to solve all these questions, and it will be solved. I mean, you just look at the progress of human history, man. I mean, some really cool things have happened, as far as just science and technology.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm no card grader, but I would think, especially for vintage, for your side specifically, Andy, would be so tricky for an AI to try to figure that out. Like, especially catching fakes. I have to imagine. I'm not really a vintage guy, but I have to imagine, and same with Magic, or TCG, that there's just a certain feel that like only someone that really knows a card picks it up, and they can almost tell, just by touching the card with their with a couple fingers, like something's off here. You know what I mean? Like, or
no
this
doubt.
feels the way that it's supposed to, And I don't know that an AI can ever do that. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want the AI to come murder me later when it takes over the world in the future.
It's listening right now.
Yeah, of course it is. But I just feel like there's just always a tactileness there that like you're always going to need a person for, to just touch that and go, this feels the way it's supposed to, or something's wrong here. Maybe they can't put their finger on it, but they know it just doesn't feel right.
Well, I agree with you in high value items like, this alpha time walk. Could it be rebacks? Is it, clipped corners or whatever else you have? There's so many different things for vintage Magic that can, like you said, to the point, like even the feel of the card, the wear coat they put on it is just a certain way. And there's a lot of unscrupulous people out there to try to deceive people by, like said, grinding off the back of a collector's edition and slapping on the front of a regular card, and you got to be vigilant, and you really have to be careful with these things, because we have a comprehensive guarantee, like Andy mentioned. And, if we mess up and put something wrong in the holder, we're going to fix it, and make the customer right. So, we try to be the best experts we can be. And with that, with AI in the future, we're going to make sure that we train that machinery to be as best as it can be as well. And working hand in hand with it right now is the best bet for us.
Yeah, I've always said with especially pre-war, a big part of authenticating grading is you got to smell the card. And I know that sounds crazy, but for those who collect pre-war, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the feel, the smell, all of it goes hand in hand. And if somebody comes up with a robot that can do that, then I'll respectfully retire.
Is it? I have to imagine, and we'll wrap on this. I have to imagine it's got to be a constant battle of, a game of cat and mouse, basically, between the people that want to do nefarious things, giving the value that, is associated with some of this stuff these days. There is a lot of incentive to try to pull a fast one past a grading company now. It's not like, you get a fake through and you sell it for $50. Like you're talking about big dollars out there for a lot of this stuff. I have to imagine it's just got to be a constant, like, okay, they up their game on this, we got to up our game on this, whatever it is, thing that is, whatever the current trend is in the market that the guys that are doing bad things are doing. But it's just got to be a constant, battle, essentially.
Yeah, we stay plugged in with this stuff. I mean, we see it a lot in the social media circles and things like that. But like one of the big ones about a year ago was people putting fake first edge stamps on shadowless cards. So they would take, a shadowless Charizard, and they get like a really well printed first edge stamp and slap it right on that Charizard, trying to pass it to the grading companies. And a few grading companies did put them in holders. Fortunately, I don't think we had any in the holders. We found pretty much everyone we encountered, just due to just training, proper training through our graders that, say, okay, this is what we got to look out for now. We have a really good, communication system amongst ourselves here that keeps everything that we find. If someone finds one thing, we make everyone aware of it. And, it's been really beneficial for us doing it that way. And I think that, the people that, like Andy touched on it again earlier, was that the experts that we have that are very specific to their areas, helps us out tremendously.
Yeah, and that's a big part of our ongoing classroom training. So I always brag on Dr. Webb here, but he's the director of our education department. And we actually, when I say we have a classroom, we literally have a classroom in a lab where we do our grader training. And it's not just for the training when you're onboarded, if you're a new grader, but it's that ongoing continual education. And so some of the modules that we do has to do with counterfeits and alteration detection. And that's constantly changing. We're adding to that constantly. I don't know if you've seen, but we try to put out at least one every cycle, we try to put out an article about counterfeits that we detect and the technology we use. And that's part of pulling back the curtain. Is that's really one of our big focuses, and that's why we're here talking with you. We want to pull the curtain back, talk more about what's going on, and share when we have counterfeits, we have alterations. We're sharing those with our audience, and showing what we're seeing.
Yeah, we had a fake one of these come in the other day, and grading a fake one of these would definitely be very detrimental to the business.
Yeah, you don't want that one on the social sphere.
No.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have experts too in the industry, like yourself, like other people that would come to our office as well, that have like dialed in specialties on certain areas of cards, where they literally have a presentation on PowerPoint or something where they can show you every fake they've seen and every way they've done it. So, we lean on the community for resource and information as well, because, I look at the community and I see some of the biggest experts in the world that would, never work for a grading company, but they love to offer their knowledge and their services to people like us to try to help the community, help the hobby move forward. So, I think just it's what's great about the collectible field is everyone's super passionate, super into it, and offer up something that can be beneficial to the community.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both for your time, for coming on and having a little chat today, and being open, and for the community's sake. They were not prepped with questions ahead of time. I was not given directives of, hey, you can't ask this or don't talk about this. So I always give you guys credit when you come on and be open like this, because I do think it's important to your guys' point that as a collector base and as a consumer of your products, to be out there and open and being able to ask or answer the questions that are thrown at you guys. So I appreciate you guys giving me a little bit of time today.
Yeah, listen, it's very important. Education is very important for us. That's we did in the grade school videos. We'll actually be starting a new series of those up, but it's all about sharing with the community. Somebody made mention today, and talking about pulling back the curtain, is of the what they call the big four grading companies. I mean, can you name any of the graders with these other companies? And that's part of the thing. We want to pull that back. We've already done some videos where we've highlighted some of our graders, just trying to get to know them a little bit better, but being out there, because in reality, we're the experts here. Many of us have spent our entire careers doing this, and there's not a reason to hide, right? It's not magic behind the curtain. It's technology, expertise, and it's a system in place. And so that this is all part of that. Is we're very big on education. We want to be accessible. Throw a plug. The Nationals coming up. Matt and I both will be there on the floor. So I encourage anyone that has more questions, or you want a free sample card so you can see what our holder and label look like in hand. By the way, you have the clearest holder in the industry. Another plug, but seriously, come by, grab a sample card if you haven't seen our product before. Ask us questions. Would love to talk with you. That's primarily why I'm there. I'm there to talk with people, and I'm still a very passionate collector. Matt is as well. So even if you just want to come by and talk cards, that would be cool. But the point is, we want to be accessible, and that it's a community. The hobby's a community. We're just another entity in the community. We're with everybody, right? We're collectors too, and so we want to be open to any questions. So I appreciate you having us on. I always enjoy going on your show, and I also appreciate you don't hold back. You ask the questions, and that's great. And I hope you have us on again.
No problem, gentlemen. I will see you both at the National in just basically exactly 1 month from today. That is going to be here before you know it.
It's already here.
I'm really excited. It'll be a lot of fun. I see a lot more TCG people at this thing too now recently. So I know a lot of good people are coming there, and it should be a ton of fun.
So, all right, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we will catch you guys all on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.